all I can say is after an exciting summer of football, I'm so glad to have the football back.
Indeed. And it's been a good weekend. I'd like to say it's been an entirely good weekend for football. It's been about 80% of a good weekend. Seeing City being beat today was great. And long may that continue. Liverpool winning, which was great. Long may that continue.
Yes.
Coventry City missing a 92nd minute penalty, and which would have made the game 1-1. Not entirely great, I have to say. The gods were not with the mighty Sky Blues yesterday, which is annoying, I have to say. So there we go. But yeah, good to have the football back. Not only that, good to have the fans back in as well. I mean,
it is. And certainly,
atmosphere.
Yeah, certainly sat here on a Saturday afternoon with the old Five Live in the background. Sports report, lovely. Anyway, before I start seeing the numbers on screen here diminish because they go, oh God, blimey, he's talking about football again. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Interesting Modelling Company show. Well, back from retirement, we have Mr. Spencer Pollard because we've got some exciting news things to talk about tonight, and so I thought Spencer's got he's got a particular interest in a couple of them, and also I think it's fair to say, Mr. P. After weeks of where we've had a kind of barely any, it's been a quiet couple of weeks in terms of new releases. Suddenly, bam! It's been an avalanche this week.
Yes, we've had quite a number of interesting things, including one which we'll talk about shortly that was muted quite a while back and now has suddenly made a reappearance. And very nice it looks as well. So yeah, some good stuff, I think. Looking through the lists, there's been some really nice stuff. Also things that we couldn't sort of fit in here. There's been some Caracal have just released some really nice new decal sheets as well, including the first decals for the F-15EX in its test and initial squadron markings, Edwards Air Force base markings, which
we'll try and squeeze them in perhaps on next week's
so I mean, there isn't an F-15EX out there as a kit, but I would imagine to be able to use those decals wouldn't be too hard to convert an extant kit and scab on some of the little bits that are visible on that aeroplane. So, but that was quite interesting. I thought they were really out of the trapdoor quick with that.
Honestly, tonight's show, it's been a case of just having to leave stuff out because there's so much in the last 7 days, and it's, you know, do you know what? Whisper it. I even had to leave out a mini art release this week because there just wasn't room.
It was even on the list, and we scribbled it out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so we've got a lot to back in. So shall we launch into the news? News.
Indeed.
And well, this is something that has been muted and rumoured for a long time.
Indeed.
But it's finally going to happen.
And it is the brand new Meng 35th scale Chieftain Mark 10. That's the box art for this upcoming kit from I think this was rumoured, I think 12, 18 months ago, this thing was rumoured. And then they went quite quiet on it. And now it's been put back into the planning, and I guess it's almost going to be an imminent release for this year. Chieftain Mark 10, first of the Chieftain variants that was upgraded with Stillbrew applique armor, which is what you can see on the front of the turret there. That's that bulged armor. I think there was also some protective paneling around the driver's area as well, but mainly you can see it around the front of the turret. It was also used on the Mark 11 and 12 as well. It became part of the armor packages for those two variants, and I think was proposed for the Mark 13, but that never happened. So it's a very distinctive thing. You can see from these images, these are obviously renders that will give you a pointer to how this kit's going to look from Meng. And all Meng's kits are really superb, but this one really looks like it captures that bulky stance and look and detail of the Chieftain. Honestly, I think most people see the Chieftain as being one of the best looking battle tanks probably ever. I think it just looks right from whichever view. Yeah, it's just beautiful to look at. If a battle tank can be beautiful, sort of got that malevolent beauty. One of those things that was kind of leveled at the Tiger One. That was often described as having a malevolent beauty, and I can understand what that means. But in the case of the Chieftain, that's certainly true. The sort of curves that it has on it, and then when they added Stillbrew to the front of the turret, it just bulks it out even more. You can see from this, it looks like suspension is going to be kind of, if not workable, and that's going to be allowed thanks to individual track links that are going to create a workable system on this. It also looks like they've gone to some lengths to make assembly of the tracks as easy as possible. They supply a little jig, which you can see there, and you just line those up in blocks. I think there's 8 in there or something, and then the pins fit into those straight off the runners. So you just basically put them into the jig, put the pins in, and then just cut the pins away from their runner perfectly aligned.
I'm just going to say that according to the blurb that Meng have put out, it says that this kit includes easy to assemble single pin workable tracks, and the horizontal spring suspension and shock absorbers are accurately replicated.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's that they've gone out of their way to try and do that, and I for one really like the idea of that on a model like this. That articulation interests me, certainly for sort of diorama points of,
they did it with the 35th scale AMX.
Right. Okay.
One of their earliest ones, and it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't the first time a Mark 10 has been created, of course. Takom have got a Mark 10 in their range already, and Takom's Chieftains are really nice. So anybody that's seen one of those will be interested to see how this improves on what was already created by them. Accurate Armour also did a conversion for the old Tamiya kit. They did a Mark 10 Stillbrew conversion, which offered the turret and various other bits and pieces. So this is the second of this version of this vehicle to be released. You can see as well that they've gone for Berlin Brigade as their sort of box art, as did Takom. Takom's Mark 10 had a Berlin Brigade vehicle on the box top in this sort of panelled colour scheme, which I've yet to try out, but I would really like to go painting. I have to say, I think it looks really great in those colours. Although I thought it was kind of interesting that they'd done that camouflage and they'd sort of done it in snow when I thought the whole point of the Berlin Brigade ones was that it was like an urban camouflage. So, but what is great about this artwork, and I know a lot of people have commented on it, that box art actually makes it jump off the page. The white background works really well because it shows up the colours. So I think that's really nice. There are some interesting things in this that I was looking at when I looked online about it, which they make a point of certain things pre-release on this. Stillbrew is one of those that the Stillbrew attaches to the turret in a prototypical fashion, which I found interesting. Gun mantlet cover and gun barrel thermal sleeve are digitally sculpted. Now, when you look at the pictures of that, you can see that there is something amazingly definite detail, especially around the mantlet cover, which I thought was really, really nice. So again, that'll be interesting to see how that's replicated. You can see there how the ripples have been put into that fabric cover, and how it kind of works into the barrel and then into the mantlet itself. That looks really good. Very interesting to see how that looks. The infrared sight looks like can be shown in its open position, complete with all the sighting inside, which I thought was really nice. A searchlight on the side of the turret. There's a big box on the turret, and it's got a searchlight in, which I thought was really interesting as well. Yeah, horizontal spring suspension, shock absorbers, accurately replicated, very nice. Kit includes easy to assemble single pin working tracks. Again, we've seen those, and they do look very easy to make. And anybody that's made individual track links will know what a bear they are to put together half the time. So yeah, but that looks so it looks like what they've done is that that one end of a track link, it must have a pin that fits into a socket on the other, on the mating surface of the opposite link, and then you twist you presumably just bring the other end together and then lock that into place with the pin. That's, I think, what they mean. So that makes that super easy to put together. That's really good. And then, as is standard in a lot of kits these days, certainly in a lot of these kits that we're seeing manufactured in this part of the world, clear lights, observation ports, and optical sights are all included. So that's rather nice. So you're not going to be sort of painting colored plastic to create the illusion of clear parts. The clear parts are in the kit, which is great. And I particularly like the idea that the headlights are in clear. I think that's a really nice option in that kit. But yeah, that gives you a really good indication, that picture, of how detailed this model is likely to look. I think it's going to be popular. It's certainly going to be very popular in the UK. And also, Meng kits are pretty well priced as well. They're not overly expensive. So again, I think that's good. But if it looks anything like that, the stance of this kit looks almost perfect. One point I will make with this is the with these kits that are coming out, Takom, Meng, and all of those kind of things, they are the vehicle. That's all it is. So you get the vehicle in that. And unlike Tamiya, who offer some fantastic crew figure sets to go into their vehicles, so you don't have to be hunting round, in this instance you do. And sort of 1980s era British tank crew are very few and far between. And I really do wish that these companies would start looking into adding crew figures into their kits, especially ones where there is very little out there that you can use. We see a lot of figure sets, vehicle figure sets, that kind of thing, for Second World War vehicles, but we see very few of those coming out for that intermediate Cold War period. We see tank crew figures coming out for modern battle tanks, for Iraqi war, for Desert Storm, all of those kind of things. But when it comes to anything that's kind of 70s and early 80s, they're very few and far between. And I think that is a very untapped market for armor modeling around the world. That I would love to see model companies start to appreciate that the kits are out there, the figures aren't. And I think there's a market for that. I appreciate that there are some resin figures out there that you can get, but I'm talking about lower priced plastic figures that are readily available that you can use.
So if there is anybody from Mini Art watching tonight, a small request here. Can we have some British Overseas Army of the Rhine?
Yes, please.
19 and all that.
Not just that, but I mean, you think of of sort of tank crew, American tank crews, from that period. If you want to build reforged dioramas and that from that era, you're limited on what you can use to create those. And I know Verlinden Productions had tank crew available from that period. They had some American figures and everything, but they're really difficult to get hold of. So I think there's an untapped market there, and I would love to see that. It's great seeing these kits, but I'm always sort of left thinking, right, where do I get the figures from to finish on? Because I don't really like building tanks with hatches closed. So
I think it's fair to say that this is also, well, actually, that will come to something we're going to talk about at the end of this, about things that lend a sense of scale to models. But what I was going to say was, I've forgotten where I was now. You would, oh yes, this vehicle is also that kind of important stepping stone between the earlier Chieftain variants and what eventually became the Challenger. Once the Stillbrew armor started being developed, it's that natural kind of progression through to Challenger. But one of the things I was going to say, you've driven down the M5 down towards Cornwall quite a few times, haven't you?
I have.
Have you ever noticed that when you get past Bridgewater, have you ever seen the big Morrison's warehouse on the right-hand side?
I must have done. Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, the thing is, that's your Chieftain tank in its Berlin camouflage. Okay. and that's the Morrison's building.
Oh, I have.
Yes,
yes, I have.
Yes. Every time I drive past that, I look at it at the corner of my eye, and I think, yeah, so that's Chieftain tank camouflage.
Yes,
and you know what? It actually serves the same purpose because it breaks the building up into the landscape that you can't see it.
Yeah, it really is unobtrusive when you sort of driving up to it. It does work really well. Yeah, I'm surprised that hasn't become a camouflage pattern on I was going to say on British tanks, but I'm not entirely sure how many of those we've got. So yes. So a brilliant release. Pavel's just put up.
Yeah, he said it was first announced in 2015. Yeah, I do remember a certain kind of hairy Scots Somerset man getting rather excited about the release of a 35th scale chieftain from Meng, and then it all went. It was one of those things that it was going to happen. But then it didn't, and then Tacon came along and satiated everybody's desire for one, and now now we're full circle with Meng again. So I did see Pavel. There we go. Pavel said they first announced it in 2015. So and
it's funny, isn't it? Because I remember it being announced. Time flies so quickly, but mind you, we lost a year, didn't we? We lost all of last year, pretty much. And it seems like Meng have only been around for a couple of years, but they're pretty well established now.
Next year will be the 10th anniversary of when they turned up at Telford. So
wow.
they are a relatively new company. They've just made a big impression over the last 10 years or so. So.
Yeah, and what was that with the F102 when they turned up with that? I guess.
I think it was the F102.
P51, wasn't it?
No. This was 2012. So I think the AMXs were new. This was right at a period when I think they had about 4 kits out. The F102, probably the Fiat G91, the AMX, possibly the Abrams. They do an Abrams? I can't remember. No. Probably not. 10 years ago.
I remember the G91. I mean, and when they sort of came, they were one of those companies that we sort of thought, yeah, it looks like that's okay. We saw the kits, it looks okay and everything. But they have made some real strides, haven't they? And the newest kits are fabulous.
No, absolutely. I've still got up on the shelf in here the pickup truck. That was the other one they had out at the time, was the Toyota pickup truck.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And I built that, and it will be eventually incorporated into a little kind of like Libya diorama, and this is like a semi-tactical vehicle. So anyway, fabulous release from Meng. As I say, this is a busy week, so we're going to rattle straight on with the next one. And the next one kind of took us all a bit surprised. This is ICM, and this is a brand new Gotha 242. Now, we're assuming this is 48 scale. I couldn't find any reference in the stuff that ICM put up on their social media page to say that it was any other scale, but we're assuming it is 48 scale. So apologies to ICM if we've got that horribly, horribly wrong. Those of you with a long memory will remember that Italeri did this in 72nd scale, and rather nicely back in the 70s. And in fact, they did it as a Gotha 242 and as the powered 244. And I do seem to remember that the very early boxings of the kit actually came with a little 72nd scale Kuberwagen as well. But I've got the Italeri Gotha kit. It's actually very, very nice. But to have a new one, hopefully in 48 scale, is fabulous, because we've seen the detail that ICM bring to their A game these days. And when you see, for example, that render of the interior, and this is one of those models where the amount of effort you put into the interior will be repaid, because you can pose, the tail open. So, you'll be able to see all that detail. But I don't know about you, but yet again, the words fabulous are drawn from my lips, because this is a fabulous release, or fabulous announcement, shall we say.
Yeah, it's a good-looking airplane as well, isn't it? In a sort of like agricultural way, especially when you look at it low down and it's sat in its undercarriage. It looks really nice. But yeah, there's a lot of potential with this thing, and certainly because of that big greenhouse at the front. And it is a greenhouse, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty flat panelled. I would imagine that you're going to see all of that lovely detail inside. Got a lot of possibilities with. I suppose it does open up a possibility that they might do the powered one as well.
I think we can, without wishing to put words into ICM's mouth, I think you can pretty much guarantee that it will happen. It will. They're not going to go this far and not do anything for this. I was just having a look. Apparently, some blurb says that there are some preserved examples, but from what I understand, preserved examples, they are literally bits of airframes, not, alas, a complete, complete aircraft. But no, when I saw this pop up midweek, I just thought fabulous. You can't go wrong with Luftwaffe, because Luftwaffe stuff will always sell. And this is unique. This is something that hitherto, if it is 48 scale, I say we are taking a guess here, but if this is 48 scale, 35th scale even. I doubt it will be.
It is. Pavel's just put down, it's got a code there. If you have a look, 48225. So it is 48.
Yes, it's 48 scale. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Pavel. So that's that is a winner essentially,
and not a huge model either. No, relatively compact. I agree with you over ICM though, and they're not afraid to take on the esoteric, are they? They're not a company that go down the route of most trodden. That's for sure. They're really sort of up there with the sort of the best of the manufacturers who are willing to look at subjects that haven't really been dealt with. You mentioned the Italeri kit, but that's 45 years old, that thing. So to get something new like this, and also it will make a nice model to look at with everything open as well, so you'll be able to see all those kind of things. I think it's got an awful lot of potential. So
and also, ICM. Their kits are reasonably priced, so
yes, absolutely, yeah. And having built a few of them, the Junkers 88 being one of them, they're really nice to build as well. They do go together well. Not sure about the Invader, but the Junkers 88 certainly went together well. So yeah, really nice.
Moving on, we're still in 48 scale, but we're kind of flipping back a world war or two.
Indeed, yeah. This came as sort of a bit out of the blue, really. I think because I've been decorating the house for the last week or so, and I've been indulging myself in models on four wheels rather than two wings. I kind of missed this. I missed this coming out. Eduard are about to release a 48 scale Sopwith Camel F1. That's this thing here. Eduard have had a Sopwith Camel in their range since about 2003, and they've had a number of iterations that have come out of that kit. They've done a bunch of F1s. They've also done two F1 variants as well. So there have been kits of the Sopwith Camel from Eduard, but Eduard seemingly thought it was time to take another look at this kit and produce something for the sort of 21st century, I guess, sort of 2021, 2022 market rather than the early 21st century. And they've created this kit. Now, I took a look at these images, and these are images of the model. These aren't renders. These are images of the plastic model that's been assembled. And I have a number of things that have kind of caught my eye with this. One of them is that they've gone down the route that they went down with the SE5A in dealing with the rib tapes in a pretty kind of heavy-handed way, in my opinion. If you look at a World War I aeroplane, and you look at it closely, look at the wings closely, the rib tapes don't look like that. They don't have that almost kind of barbed wire effect over the surface of the wings, and yet Eduard seemed to like to replicate them in this way, and I think it spoils the look of the model in many regards. And I feel that when I've seen the original Sopwith Camel, and I feel that the earlier kit actually deals with the flying surfaces better than this one does. This one, when I saw the SE5A for the first time, I was thinking, well, that's not kind of smooth or in scale. And I remember my good friend Harris Ali built one, and he pulled the same comment out of the air when he'd finished building it and said, you know, it doesn't have that sort of that smoothness that you would expect. So I'm not sure how much this is going to improve on what was already there. There are nice details in this. There are some areas on the kit that do look to be well done. But you can certainly see from these images that those rib tapes are not dealt with any kind of subtlety. Now, how it also. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I've just gone onto Wikipedia to find a pilot's eye view from a Sopwith Camel. And the one thing you notice that you can't see are the rib tapes.
Indeed. You know, and I appreciate, you know, the modelers these days like detail that they can accentuate with paint, and I do wonder whether or not that's where some manufacturers are going with their thought process. Well, you know, it's a bit like the discussion about incised panel lines. You know, people like incised panel lines so that they can put a wash down them and bring them out that way. Now, incised panel lines, as we all know, are way over scale, but modelers like them to go in there. Even the best models have panel line detail that's over scale, and because this is a raised detail rather than one that's scribed into the surface for obvious reasons, there has been an over accentuation of this detail in the same way that we get an over accentuation of other detail on jet models, for instance. But I think it spoils the look. That tailplane there, to me, that's just way overdone.
It's also exacerbated by the fact that because they've got it as the, you know, accurately as the twin rib tapes as well.
Yeah,
you start double trouble. It's
I
mean, we'll hold judgment, you know, that perhaps the final production kit might be a little bit subtler, but yes,
honestly, I don't think it will be. I think this is what you're going to. I think this is what you're going to get. I think this is what will be available from Eduard, and because, like I say, it's identical in terms of presentation and production to the SE5As, and they went out as they were. You know, they sort of followed. It'd be interesting to see what others who are more knowledgeable on these things think about this kit. I believe that Ray's had a look at it. Ray Rimmel had a look at it. So it'll be interesting to read what he thinks of this kit. It's initially going to come out as a dual combo, isn't it? I think it's going to be the first kit as a limited edition, according to the blurb. They're going to do a dual combo boxing of the kit, so that'll be interesting. We don't have any information on color schemes or anything. That we've only seen the renders, and I think maybe the box art, or at least part of the box art, where it's shown two color schemes. One which looked to be in blue with the yellow wings, which looked very pleasing, I have to say, but I'm not sure what that is. But so that's Eduard's replacement Sopwith Camel for their earlier kit, which is due out shortly, I think.
I think it looks crisp. But it looks crisp, but crisp perhaps for all the wrong reasons.
Yes, indeed.
So we will wait. You know, like I say, we're not going to damn the kit. We will keep an open mind up until it gets released. But you know, it's actually amazing. You know what I think what we need. What I hate that phrase. What we really need. I think there is the market out there actually for a decent 72nd scale one at the moment, because there is pretty much not really much out there, is there?
No. There we go. So, be good to see.
Yeah, right. We will crack on because we've still got quite a few things to bundle our way through here. So the next one, and you may have seen this on the timeline that we posted up, and this is a special release from Dragon. And this is their SAS 80-year anniversary model set. And actually, what you see there in the illustration is what you get in the set, and it contains 3 SAS Jeeps with 7 figures, and it's essentially made up of 3 separate Dragon kits. So it's the Jeep with the commander's car, there is the Jeep patrol car, and then there is the Desert Raider with the 50 cal machine guns. It says here, the latter is a cyber hobby white box item never released in Europe. Figures will be the same as D6682. This is all packaged in one anniversary box, and the retail for this is going to be around the £70 mark. That's £70, which I think people will, whenever you get kits pushing up that kind of price range, people will raise their eyebrows. But I think it's fair to say that you're getting 3 of those Dragon Jeeps in there, which I think they retail on their own for over £20 each, and you're getting some some exquisite figures with it as well. So it's very much a personal choice. If SAS Jeeps are your thing, and you want to make the most out of it, I would say, having recently done that kind of cost comparison with the Tamiya Panzer IV that I'm building, and I think that worked out at about £2 over 14 days. That was about £2.80 a night. So I think the cost of something like this can easily be aggregated over a number of weeks, if not months. You're not going to rush and build this. Let's put it that way. So, but it's it's coming back as an anniversary set. So you're essentially getting all that in the set. So there we go.
I mean, for me, because I've been reading Damian Lewis's books on the SAS, which are fabulous, this interests me to see SAS Jeeps, and I would like to build another one, having built the ancient Tamiya one last year. I'd like to build a more accurate kit, so this sort of interests me a little bit. I kind of like the way the figures look. That's quite nice. I didn't even realise that was I'm assuming that's a separately available set as well. I didn't realise that you could get those, but those figures look quite nice, don't they? Typical. I would imagine they're sort of Gen 2 figures from Dragon, so they've got plenty of detail, and I particularly like the commander figure. That's really nice. I wonder if he's modelled on anybody particular. David Starling, maybe. So Sterling. So yeah, I kind of like the idea of that. I agree with you on the cost. I mean, it's working out about 20 quid a kit, isn't it? Give or take, 22 quid a kit, something like that. With the figures, I mean, those figures are what, 14, 15 quid each, I would imagine, for the set. So it's working out about 20 quid per Jeep. So yeah, interesting. I think it's a good reworking from Dragon. Dragon are an interesting company now. They hit the heights, didn't they? They were producing some stellar kits, and then they just tailed off. And so it makes sense that they're packaging kits like this together and trying to maximise their resource. I think that's the best.
I've got some feedback here. Anthony Bird says apparently the yellow and blue Sopwith Camel is fictional Biggles markings.
Cool. Yeah, it's nice. I kind of like it. It's got a look of that sort of interwar American.
I was going to say, I was wondering whether it was an aircraft that was sent to America, but
yeah, it's got
here we go. Darren McGuinness says that figure set is based on a famous photo of David Sterling and men from B Squadron SAS.
The one that's on the book cover of Band of Brothers, the Damian Lewis book. So yes, so that sort of fascinates me really. I'd like to. I mean, that's a very famous photograph of those boys. So I think that would be a good. That would maybe be good to replicate that scene. Although, would I want to paint 3 Jeeps and three sets of figures? I'm not sure I'd want to do that, but certainly with one of them, I'd like to do maybe the one nearest to him in the picture. That'd be good.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Excellent. Right, we will move on to the penultimate news item. Then we've got a bit of a kind of like a Tamiya and Italy roundup. But finally, tonight's item, Mr. Pollard, what is it?
Yeah, the final one is that dream model who've sort of sprung up of late, and have done some interesting kits, are about to do this, the UH-1Y Venom. This is the kind of latest variant of the UH-1 family, most powerful, heaviest, biggest, the whole shooting match. All we have for this is box art, which is what we've got here. But this is the very first time that this variant has been modeled in 72nd scale. I say the very first time as if this is an airplane, an aircraft that's been flying for decades. It is a relatively new variant. So it's perhaps not a surprise that it hasn't been modeled in 72nd up till now. Has been modeled in 48th though. Kitty Hawk did a kit of this recently, so it has been available in that larger scale, but in 72nd scale this is the first time. I would imagine, judging this kit by previous kits from Dream Model, that this will be really nicely detailed as well.
Come in.
Yes, so I'd imagine that it will be really nicely detailed, and will go together well to create what is a really punchy looking helicopter, isn't it?
Well,
so,
I think the sobering thing to realise about the Huey is that essentially in its first initial form, first took to the air. You ready? Drum roll. You're a drummer. Drum roll. Very good. 65 years ago.
65.
Yeah,
just 65.
Just so the very first early embryonic version of the Huey, of what became the Huey, took to the skies in 1956.
Yeah.
And it's still being developed as an aircraft.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's just astonishing how the longevity of some of these machines, the Hercules, B-52, those sort of, the DC-3 is still in service around the world, so it is extraordinary that we've still got these helicopters. But I think it's testament to the how fundamentally sound the original design was. It's a pretty
exactly
sort of, straightforward design.
It does the job, and rather than kind of like trying to reinvent the wheel, just keep upgrading it, and it will do the job for you.
Absolutely. It's like Trigger's broom, isn't it? Everything on this helicopter has been completely replaced over the years, so it no longer is a UH-1. It's completely.
I have got one of the Freedom F5s, and they are gorgeous. I just wish I had the time to actually sit down and build one of the F5Es, because they're lovely. They're not cheap, but they're lovely.
Yeah, so, I would imagine this is going to be lovely as well, and I'll be very interested to see more of this kit. Helicopters aren't really my thing, although if somebody was to produce a brand new kit of the Puma, I think helicopters would very much be my thing. So if we could have one of those in 72nd, 48th, and a new 32nd scale kit, please, in the new anniversary RAF markings that it's currently carrying. The tasteful ones, because it is the most beautiful helicopter ever to fly, and that is the most beautiful colour schemes ever carried. So if we could just have one of those, please, that would be very, very nice.
Comes back on the show, starts issuing lists of demands. I don't know, honestly.
In fact, we can have it in 144th as well. Why don't we just complete the set? So we can do, but certainly a brand new 32nd scale Puma would be very nice with all the current equipment fits. So if anybody's listening, that would be lovely to me.
Can we move on?
Yes.
You done? Right, okay. Talking to Tamir, right. We're just going to rattle through these as quickly as possible. We have from Tamir, you may have seen this, they're doing the 48 scale F-14A late model carrier launch set. As you can see here, so it includes an F-14 with a figure and a section of carrier deck, and we just scroll down, and it says the kit depicts wings and deployed flaps and slats, which can be attached to the wings by support parts. So this is going to be the upgraded kit with the slats and flaps. Catapult shuttle and one-piece whole back bar with its nose landing gear realistically depict the F-14A taking off from the carrier deck. essentially, lots and lots of new bits. Comes with four marking options. All awesome. For two for F-14As from VF-32 Swordsman, one from VF-211 Fighting Checkmates, plus one VF-154 Black Knights. Yeah, this is going to.
You don't really need to go any further than Swordsman, do you? With this, just say it includes Swordsman decals.
Yeah, it's this will retail for around £99, which is a lot of money. But as you've built the Tamiya F-14 Tomcat, I've built the Tamiya F-14 Tomcat, and I think we would both agree it is a superlative experience that justifies every single note you put into it.
It's still the best aircraft model kit I've ever built.
Yeah, likewise. And I'm not a big fan of the F-14, but as a plastic model building experience, I don't think I've ever built an aircraft model which approached that level of near perfection. And this one gets all the slats and the flaps with it.
Well, in fact, I spoke to Andy Farmer about this. He of the hobby company Parish, and I'd said that I'd built the Messerschmitt 109G, the Spitfire, the Tomcat, both Tomcats, and also the F4 and the and the P38 Lightning as well. So I've done that whole generation of brand new to me kits, and the Tomcat is still the best amongst that cluster of kits. And it'd be interesting to see how this one will be received, because brickbats were thrown at this kit when it first came out, you may well remember, from certain quarters who deemed it unworthy because it didn't include slats and flaps. And even though it was pointed out that the vast majority of Tomcats on the ground with the wheels down had no such thing deployed, and it was like 3% of all photographs ever taken showed such things. That wasn't enough to satisfy that particularly vociferous crowd.
So this is pretty much the few instances where actually the slats and flaps will be deployed. So
yes, absolutely. And also, I think somebody when I was chatting about it when this first came out, having it like that, it covers an awful lot of acreage. The one thing about the Tomcat is that with oversweep, you can push the wings all the way back. It takes up a lot less room. You pull the wings out on a Tomcat and have them in this position, that does take up quite a lot of shelf space. So
yes,
and it's also quite specific, isn't it? It's quite a specific pose for it to be in. If you model your aircraft in that, you can't then push the wings back. It's what it is. But I do like the idea of doing it like that, I think.
That's not all, because Tamiya are also releasing a detail up parts set, which includes stainless steel alpha probe, photo etch parts to include seatbelts and rearview mirrors, includes two types of seatbelts, F-14A and F-14D, two for each. Acceptless carton quality. Oh no, sorry, that's a technical note for the distributors. I was just reading what that was there. But this detail upset will retail for actually a quite reasonable £11.99. So there will be extra goodies coming along for the Tamiya Tomcat, should you wish. Me personally, I think it builds up fine without stuff, but some people do like the comfort of being able to use aftermarket on these things. So horses for courses.
And in fact, two of the ones that I built with seats in, and I think I used an Edouard detailing set for one of them. But the other one that I made, I added crew figures in it. It's got pilots in it, and the crew in the kit is so nicely done that when you put it in there, it looks great. So I think I'd probably do it with crew in and do it. Presumably, it includes all the gearing to have the nose down, and I would maybe do something.
Well, that's the irony. That if you are get my teeth in a minute. If
easy
you are,
to say,
it certainly is. If you are buying the carrier launch set, then you're not really going to need to buy the detail set, because I'm using the photo etch seat straps. There's pilots in there.
Yeah,
so,
you might want to rethink that, mate.
Yeah, but darting onwards, a couple of just rattle through a couple of Italeri re-releases that are coming up here. He says, desperately trying to get the screen to work. And we have, talking of Stratofortresses, here we have the B-52G early version with Hound Dog missiles. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, and there it is, hanging from under the wing there. It just says will include a Super Decals sheet, and that will be coming up back for around. It's not going to be cheap. It's going to be around about the £75 mark. Big old aeroplane. So
tough kit too.
I've been watching somebody build one on the Tamiya magazine page, and they're doing a good job of it. But there is a certain amount of perseverance with that. So there is that.
Blood, sweat, and tears built into the project.
Yeah, we also have coming up another boxing of the Italeri Sherman. And this one will be the M4A3 Easy 8 Korean War, which includes new parts and gluable tracks. And there we go. There are the schemes. So there's a rather nice camouflage one. U.S. Army 2nd Infantry Division 72nd Tank Battalion C Company Korea, which is actually quite colourful. And the rest are all olive drab, except for D, which rather interestingly is Canadian Army, Lord Strathcona's Horse Regiment C Squadron Korea. So these are all Korean era vehicles. I actually quite like the camouflage one. Don't know about you. That's a bit different.
I think I'd do the Canadian one, having visited the base when I was last in Canada. So I would do that one. I think the Strathconas, they've got Leopard 2s now. So yeah, so interesting squadron.
And I think these are the new bits that they are including in the kit, the new sprues. So it looks to be a new upper deck with transmission housing and engine covers. I probably got this horribly wrong, but I would imagine these are the new bits. So the new parts. So, and I think this is essentially, I think this is an upgrade of the kit that was the Fury Sherman from about 4 or 5 years ago. He said,
possible.
Yeah,
not
possible.
Seeing that kit, so don't know.
Well, I built it, so you think I'd know, but
although if you're anything like me, you'll build a kit and then instantly forget the experience and then move on to something else, and then sort of think, hang on a minute, have I built one of those? Academy P38 Lightning being a particular example of
that. And that truck that you built, and you said, that's nice. And it's like, yeah, you built it.
Yes, yours. Yeah, I announced. I think I announced online that I'd never built a P38 Lightning. I said I've never done one when the Tamiya kit came out. And I said I'm just going to do this, and then somebody sent me an article that I'd written for Military InScale of me building the Academy 72nd scale kit, and it was like, I don't know, 8 pages long, this article, and it was like in depth, and I was like, oh yeah, I built one of those, didn't I once? No idea. I've got absolutely no idea. It's a bit like when I watch a film, I tend to forget the plot line, and then watch it again and think, did I watch this the first time? Yes, you did. Actually, I might have memory issues, come to think of it.
Might have what?
No, memory issues. I might just... Why? Who am I? Why am I here again?
That's existential issues. Existential issues. That's not memory issues. That's Tamiya. That Italeri Korean War Sherman, the Korean War boxing will retail for around $39.99, and we're just going to round off with one more Italeri, just a couple of Svestra updates. This Italeri one coming up right now. Share screen, press button. Is their 72nd scale SD KFZ 234/4. For those of you, this is 72nd scale. So for those of you with an older memory, will remember that Airfix back in ye oldie days did the 234/4, but they included the wrong mudguards. Because essentially what you needed were the mudguards from the Matchbox Puma. Nobody quite knows why original Airfix back in the 1960s got their mudguards muddled up, other than Chris Ellis always used to run articles showing you how to correct the mudguards in the kit. But anyway, that's a little bit of historical.
Do you think they based it on a museum example where they'd mocked the vehicle up using
quite possibly
another 8-rad that had those mudguards on? Yeah,
I think quite possibly it's these were the dark ages of research. But anyway, the Italeri do a 76 scale one that will be coming back very soon. In fact, it will be coming back in and around No, we haven't got a date here, but that will be coming back, and that's retailing at around £15. Incidentally, we've got some dates for the Tamiya carrier launch set is round about November, as well as the F-14A detail parts will be back around November. And finally, on the news updates here, a couple of things, some prices. We've got that Zvezda M4A3 Sherman we talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago, the 76mm one, which looks fabulous. I can't wait to build one of those. Hold on to your horses. It will retail for around £25.99.
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, and also the Zvezda 48 scale Yak 130. We've now got a price for that. That will be around about the £35.99 mark. But that's all the news for tonight.
I have to say
over to Diane with the weather. So
I have to say that Sherman is very good value for money, isn't it? 25 quid.
Yeah, and you haven't built one.
I haven't. No, I haven't built one of those. I'm
so looking forward to reacquainting myself with that kit because it is stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
For what you get, for what you get, and the detail and the price, it's like, yeah.
Shamefully, I haven't built any Zvezda vehicle kits.
That's going to come back and haunt you.
I haven't, although I do have the Pansia to do, which is that truck rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Thing. So, Pansia, is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see what I mean, man? My memory today. I think it's all the excitement of the football. To be honest, I think
it is. You're footballed out, man.
I'm drained by the expectation of the coming season. So,
some housekeeping here. Pavel says the only common thing between the Brava version, the UH1, and the latest Yankee version, is the UH1 designation. Even that not fully, as the early ones were originally HU1. Yeah, no, absolutely, Pavel. We take the point. I think it is. Just that whole thing about the lineage and the family of this vehicle, of this aircraft, starting out initially in 1956, and just that even though the aircraft has changed considerably, it's a bit like the difference between a Spitfire Mark 1 and the Seafire 47. But it's just how that basic core concept of that aircraft just gets refined and reinvented and upgraded and redesigned. So that 65 years later, we are still talking about something that is recognizably part of that UH1, linear family. But it's a fabulous aeroplane. I mean, there's a reason why it's stuck around all these years, and that's because it works. So indeed.
Yeah.
Would you like to assume the Lotus position, Mr. Pollard?
Indeed. So. Yeah, I have actually been doing some model making today this week. There it is. That's my completed Tamiya Lotus Europa. We talked about this kit last year. We did a news item last year. Was it last year? I think it might.
No, early this year.
Or earlier this year. And we talked about it because it had kind of come out and been upgraded by them with some new metal parts and that kind of thing. So this is my version of that kit. As you can see, I've gone for a different color scheme for this as well. Although that is an actual color scheme for the car. I haven't made that up. There are photographs of Lotus Europas in that beautiful sky blue color. I can't imagine why I would paint anything in sky blue.
I cannot imagine why it's sky blue. No.
Yeah. So I should have changed the number plate to L12 COV, which I may well do actually. That would be kind of good, and then give it to Elizabeth. But also the other thing I did with this as well was that I went for a more weather-beaten finish on this, which takes it into the same realm as the Honda S600 that I built last year for the garage diorama. So I've sort of adapted that idea, but I've adapted it in a slightly different way because this has got such a pale color scheme, this pale blue. I went for darker dirt around the bottom, whereas with the red I went for lighter dusty coats. The other thing I've done as well is I've tried to replicate worn chrome on this, where the chrome started to wear away, so you can kind of see that on the bumper and also on the mirrors and that kind of thing. This is such a fun kit to build. I have to say, these 24 scale cars, especially the classic ones that they're doing at the moment, are really good fun to build, and even beginners can kind of get a good result from them, I think, because there's no decals to put on them. They're just basic kind of paint jobs, although this one has pinstriping on it, but in the majority of cases you've just got a few little decals here and there just to put on. It's not like the racing cars where there's a lot of that kind of work. But it also gives me the opportunity to create something that is more kind of prototypical to my eye in terms of how I want a model car to look for my collection. This eventually will be part of a vignette, and I'm planning on using a couple of the figures from the new Campus Friends set to go with this. So it will be a kind of street scene, and it will show this off to its kind of best advantage, I think. But yeah, good fun model to build. This is going to be a feature in the next Tamiya Model magazine. So there'll be a lot of photographs of how this thing went together, how I put it together, and how I painted it and sort of weathered it, and also how I weathered the engine bay and that kind of thing. I didn't add any detail to this. There's no additional parts. It's exactly as it comes in the kit, and so I focused more heavily on finish than I did on sort of additional smaller details that I thought were a bit superfluous, really.
No, I've got on a similar kind of vein. And Mr. Andrew Hills, if you are watching, I haven't forgotten about it. I am still got that little Mini Cooper, the Fujimi Mini Cooper that I'm working on, and a couple of false starts with the finish. I've now had a rethink about what I'm going to do with it, and it is going to be literally, I'm going to do it as a car in like a very kind of like basic kind of primer in the corner of a garage being worked on. So it's going to be a very simple figureless vignette. But and we actually had this discussion before the show, and I thought I'd throw something controversial out there, because this kind of ties in with what Jen did with that Mercedes rally car beginning of the year, what Jen beautifully did with that Mercedes rally car at the beginning of the year, and also what I'm going to do with one of these Italeri big rig vehicles that I've got to build. And that is that I believe, personal opinion here, I believe that when you start adding weathering to vehicles, to 24 scale cars, like what you've done here, I think it suddenly lends it a greater sense of scale than when they are beautifully clean and concours, because you can get, I'm saying this from a position of pure green envy, is that the beautiful mirrored finishes that I see car modelers getting, are just beyond any skills I'm going to acquire in this lifetime. And I just sit back and I'm in awe of what they can do. My personal opinion is that sometimes those finishes can be so lustrous and so glossy that the finish becomes its own thing, and that suddenly the car loses a sense of scale, and it could almost, cover your ears, car modelers, it could almost be a die cast. Whereas in a situation like this, because there is an element of weathering on there, it suddenly brings it all into scale, brings it all into focus.
I have a degree of sympathy with that, but I think you're being a little bit kind of dismissive of the idea of it. In that, I think a lot of car modelers, when they put them together, firstly, there are, you will see them at shows, the degree of skill that's needed to put that finish on and create flawless car models is almost mind-boggling at times.
I'm not honestly, Spencer, I'm not being dismissive. I am in complete awe of it. What I'm trying to kind of like clumsily put across is that they can be so perfect that there is an element removed, there is an element of scale removed from them. Does that make sense?
It does, and I like I say, I have a degree of kind of sympathy with that, but I think it comes down to what you want from the sort of models, really. And I get the sense that with car modelers in particular, or modelers of sort of cars and bikes and that kind of thing, there is an element of wanting to own the real thing, and instead of owning a hyper expensive, Lamborghini, you can have a model of it. So you're creating this idealized realization of an actual car that perhaps you would like to own, and so you sort of see it on those cars, and they want that perfect shape, that perfect finish, and all of that kind of stuff. I don't approach it in that way. I don't have the skill to do it. I genuinely don't have the skill. I've tried making perfect car models, and it is an extraordinarily difficult thing to nail. You may remember a while back I built a 20th scale Red Bull F1 car, and that had the full gamut on it. It's got 2K all over it. It's got all the full decals, it's got the carbon fiber, the whole shooting match, and it is a really difficult thing because you're getting to that point where you're finishing the model off, everything's painted, and then you've got to bring it all together and not mess up the kind of color scheme.
You can't hide it with mud.
You can't hide it with mud, no. And I think that's another kind of step level up for those. And we've discussed this in the past, haven't we? You've got sort of stratas of sort of finishing, and I always think that those high end car modelers are very much up there with like figure modelers in that regard. It's not how I want it, really, and this conversation came up last year when I did the garage diorama, which I'm kind of looking at in my display case right now. In that, if I've done it as a concourse vehicle and put it in the middle of that garage, it would look ridiculous. If I'd have put a 2K finish on it and it'd have been glossed up and I'd dropped it in there, it would have looked so out of place. So I need to build models, car models, that have that subdued finish. Even if that one's glossy, the one the Europa has got a gloss finish on it, but it's not a clear coated finish. It is just gloss paint that I've smoothed off and then given a bit of a polish to. So I want to capture what I see outside, and I've always been like that. I think car models are just an extension of my mentality. I don't want to build. I want to build something that people can look at and go, actually, that looks like the real thing. I don't want anybody to look at one of my models and go, that looks like a model. I think that's, unless I'm intentionally trying to create that hyper realization, I don't want people to look at something and go, well, that just doesn't look like the real thing. Because I would personally, for me, I would feel like I'd failed in my goal to build a replica of a real machine, not a model of a real machine. And I think there's a very definite difference between the two things, which I guess is what you're talking about with the.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I say, I genuinely, I'm not going to. I'm genuinely not being dismissive at all. I think it's a difficult thing to articulate, but I think it's a bit like sometimes where you see people who are fabulous photographers and they take something into Photoshop and they just slightly over tweak it in Photoshop so that it's gone from being a real photograph to suddenly being not stylized. It's kind of turned up to 11 a bit.
Yeah.
And I think this is I'm just going to kind of quick through the comments here. It's Dave Mummery who says the skill. Sorry, it was Dave. Yeah, Dave says many of those ultra gloss finishes from rather lethal 2K gloss clears. Exactly, and it's beautifully glossy. Is it sometimes? Is it perhaps a bit too glossy for the scale? That's the thing I'm trying to get across. You see,
I had a very similar conversation to this one with a friend of mine because I've become completely addicted to the motorbike show, which is online with that Henry Cole presents, and I absolutely love it. And I've been like just basically catching up on the entire 10 years of it. I love it. And also I watch a program called Chasing Classic Cars. And Chasing Classic Cars is an American TV program where a chap goes out and they buy rare cars and they go to concourse events and all of that sort of stuff. And he got an MG in one of the programs I watched a couple of weeks ago. And I was looking at it, and don't get me wrong, it was beautiful to look at. I mean, it was amazing, this car. It was so perfect. And I looked at it and went, that would never have looked like that when that came out of the factory. Even when it was first driven out of the factory, there is no way that car would ever look like that. And I have a thing about that. It's if you're gonna you know, I guess restore things, I think you should restore them sympathetically, not restore them to an idealization. And I guess that's the same with what I see with car models or motorcycle models or all of those kind of things. But like I say, I appreciate the level of skill that's involved in it's not for me personally, but I do appreciate, and I do like looking at them. Actually, I like looking at these models. And sometimes I sort of, you know, if you go to the national championships where they have a lot of car models on show, and I've been to US nationals as well, and seen what the American guys can do. I mean, some of the custom jobs that they do, and I'm left looking at them going, I don't even know where to begin with how they do that so perfectly. I just don't know how that works. It's not something I like to put together because it doesn't fit in with my mindset. But man, I still appreciate the way.
Jen Wright says that's the whole point of concourse, though. It's meant to be perfect. Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think,
and I understand and I appreciate that, but that doesn't make it. I get that. I get that
it's almost like if somebody ultra concourse cars are a bit like people who their teeth are a bit too straight, their skin is a bit too flawless, that everything about them is just a little bit too perfect to the point that you think there's I know what I'm talking about. John Patrick Huston says, he says, I feel under attack. Well, car modelers, please do send your hate mail to intmodco@gmail.com.
Honestly, you're not under attack in these areas. No. Definitely not. Absolutely. I think it's a skill.
Yeah, no, like I say, I think it was a bit like what we were talking about earlier on with how tanks benefit from having a figure in them, because suddenly it's this abstract shape, which we could look at that and think, well, we don't know what scale that, not literally, but our brain is trying to, how big is that in relation to a human being? As soon as you put a human being into it, whether it's 48th or 35th or 24th scale, suddenly I understand how big this thing is. And for me, it's when I saw the photographs of that Lotus, because suddenly it had all that dirt and it had all those splashes and things on it. It suddenly just brought the whole thing. It lent it a sense of scale, which me personally sometimes is missing when these things are absolutely perfect.
And I think that's where the trick lies with for a lot of the high end car modelers. What they're going for is how perfect they can get that model to look. That's where it is. It's what their goal is to make it flawless, and in doing that and creating those finishes. I mean, sometimes you look at some of the finishes they have in these cars, and you can't even, sometimes when you polish something, you can see a very you maybe see a subtle swirl mark, something like that. Sometimes I look at these car models, and I've looked at some of the candy finishes that have been put on them, and you go, I can't even see where that's been polished. That just looks like I'm looking into water. It's so flawless. I very much appreciate that. It's not for me though. But to go to Jen's point about concourse, I understand that's what it's all about. But to me, those cars lose the essence of what they are when they're too perfect. They lose part of their soul in some way. And, I would rather go to a museum where you're looking at something that looks like it's as it should be, rather than what we think it should be.
An idealized representation, really.
Indeed.
Now, in fact, I've just suddenly realized that I do actually have a car project coming up, probably in the early autumn, where I can actually get to combine. I actually will be able to get to do some weathering, and that is, of course, that little Airfix 32nd scale beach buggy.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which I don't know if you saw the photographs we put up during the week.
Yeah,
those figures are really quite phenomenal.
Yeah,
for a 50-year-old kit.
And that'll be a good one where you can create a hybrid finish on that thing as well.
Exactly.
Because you can create, if you don't paint it in a metallic finish, then I think I'm going to disown you. It has to be a metallic orange.
I do have here behind me somewhere, I do have some of those lovely Tamiya metallic orange lacquers, which will be pressed into service over a white Tamiya white primer base. So
yeah, because they're fiberglass, aren't they? Those cars. So you do need smooth gloss finish to them because they're not painted. They're in that sense, they're fiberglass.
Yeah. No, we're joined by Luke Slaney Hewitt tonight. He says, looking forward to seeing the beach buggy build. So am I, Luke. Absolutely, so am I. So like I say, car model. Honestly, I am in complete awe. I'm always in complete awe of people who possess modeling skills that I'm never going to have in my lifetime. And like I say, I can't. People who can build flawless finishes, it's beyond me. The thing I was just trying to make tonight. He says backtracking. So I dig a hole deeper. Yeah, okay. They're all like.
How many reverse gears have you got?
It's like, let's put it this way. It's that thing they always said about the thing that made. They always attributed it to Star Wars, but it wasn't Star Wars. They said the reason why the spaceships had a sense of scale in Star Wars was because they were dirty. Well, we know that Jerry Anderson did all that before Star Wars, but that's the whole point, is because Thunderbird 1 had panel lines that were picked out and it had oil streaks and things. It lent it a size, a kind of like an identifiable sense of scale. Whereas if it had been beautiful and pristine and glossy and whatever, it had just wouldn't have had that. Verisimilitude is the word we're looking for.
Are you still looking in your rearview mirrors?
Honestly, the hate mail I'm going to get over this now. Did you see that? He was slagging off car models. It was a disgrace.
Honestly, it's like I get brought back and I enter the eye of the storm.
Mr. Spencer Pollard, decent bloke, he was saying he was dismissing car models. It was disgusting.
Honestly, absolute rubbish that these people build. Their perfect finishes and their perfect smiles and
not covering it in mud.
Their washboard stomachs coming on these modelling shows, making us all feel bad about ourselves.
Any other business?
No,
apart from
getting out of here before we get lynched.
Well, you're fine. I shall. They'll send you to Coventry, but that's not far for you.
It is.
Whereas I, will get more hate mail than I'm getting at the moment. So,
yes.
Any other business, Mr. Pollard?
No, I think that's very much it. I'm glad to have helped out with a sit-in.
Well, it's like I say, it's nice to have you back this evening, especially with some meaty things like the Chieftain, and to also look at your rubbish Lotus that's not as good as those nice clean ones. So there we go.
Rubbishy Lotus.
Bit of balance there. They're giving me that now. So
yes. Those are people up in the gallery that are quickly writing out your withdrawal of your statement that we can put online later.
I don't. Mark, do you know what?
Unreservedly apologises for any.
That's actually going to happen now, don't you?
Yes,
I am going to. Jen Wright says, that's all right, Spencer. He wants me to come on just so he can fight me about black under white.
Yeah.
No, Drew thinks the same way as me now, so it's
the black under white, the great black under white debate that has been taking place. Yes, I did see Jen's comments about that, which made me kind of chuckle a little bit.
Yeah, no, we'll have her on the show and discuss that openly, honestly.
Yes, yeah. I don't know
between you and me, next model show, no biscuits for Jen. All right, so.
Well, I won't be at the next model show you guys are at, so.
Well, I don't think we'll have to wait to see which next model show we all attend. So.
Well,
anyway.
Presumably that's coming up at some point before the end of the month, isn't it?
It is.
So isn't the announcement supposed to be this month?
Yeah. So, at the next model show, we are all actually at.
Yeah,
no biscuits for Jen, all right. But anyway, on that note, just remains to say thank you to everybody for watching tonight.
Yes, thanks very much.
Especially the lovely car modelers who are part of our audience.
It's too late.
Too late.
It's way too late. You know, you said it out loud.
I didn't say anything. Honestly, I'm going to go back and watch this again. So
I perhaps should, and then edit it. Can we edit this? It's all right.
I stand
this
by.
Is live, is it?
I stand by every word I said because I know I'm coming from a position of
love,
self-immolation at this point. Anyway,
I'm doing this just because I'm coming from a position of affection, and anything I say is just for your own good and for no other reason.
On that note, it just remains for us to say thank you to Mr. Spencer Pollard for turning up tonight and watching me make a complete fool of myself.
Very welcome.
That's all right. No change there. As always, in the interim, to everybody out there, we'll be back. Hopefully, we'll be back on Wednesday. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.